Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I am going to be talking about my Fate Accelerated DC Marvel Comics tabletop role-playing game that was run in February with 6 players. So the game starts with all of the characters, which is Amazo, Harley Quinn, Jumper, who is a teleporter, and Cardiac, who is a biokineticist, Colin Crowley, who is an Iron Man, Ant-Man mashup, and one more in there. Who else do we got? Oh, Jericho is also in there from the Teen Titans. So they're all there with the Justice League, and John, Martian Manhunter, is on the comms, and he brings in about 10 floating screens that kind of float above this group. They're all kind of in one large common room. They can, and of course, the Watchtower is the base of the Justice League, and it is a satellite which rotates the Earth. Okay, so John brings in these 10 screens, these 10 large floating screens on essentially repulsor lifts. They're kind of swirling throughout the room, so everyone in the room can see what's on camera. And what is on camera is feed from the coast of California, and Lois Lane is reporting. And so, Lois Lane's on, and she says, "Hey, this is Lois Lane. I'm here on the coast of California, and I'm here with Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy launched the drones, so Jimmy launches these drones, and the drones show, what's happening there on the coast of California. And what is happening on the coast of California is the arrival of Tanyar. So Lois Lane explains, on camera, live, what, she's doing television reporting at this point. She reports what's happening, which is the arrival of Tanyar. So Tanyar is she is a new leader from Themyscira, and she has arrived on the coast of California with 600 Greek ships, all wooden, and all carrying 50 Amazons each. Right, so you have a force of 30,000 Amazons. Okay, all right, and at that point, so she has a force of 30,000 Amazons, right? And at that point, the drones go forward, and Lois Lane's drones pick up Tanyar's speech. So Tanyar explains that, that the Amazons have lived in Themyscira for quite a while, and they have watched the nation of America, and the nation of America has grown to be the #1 strongest nation in the world, and that Themyscira has decided that because of this, they have an accountability. And Tanyar explains that they've studied American history, and they've studied what's been happening in America currently, and that America has 50 states, right? And never once in the 240 odd years of American history has America given one of these states to women. And so Tanyar is there with a force of 30,000 Amazons, of course, who are all women, who to liberate California and give it to the women, give it to 2 groups. One, the women who live in California. And the way she is doing this is she is saying that it's midnight at the time of the taping, where Lois Lane is recording live. And of course, all the player characters are witnessing this. And she says that at noon, all 30,000 Amazons will descend on California. And at that time, any men found there will be killed on sight. All right? But they have 12 hours to evacuate now. Okay? And then she explains how the property in California will then be dealt with. So any women, all they need to do to claim the property they own is simply stay there. Just stay on their property, and for the first 24 hours while the Amazons are there, and that property then becomes theirs solely. any property that does not have a woman claiming it in California, any women from America can go there immediately and do the same thing and claim that unclaimed property. And then any property that has not been claimed by California women or by American women, that the Amazons will be staying and they will take that property. Okay. So Tanyar explains that they are liberating California specifically for women. She also then says exactly how they will do that, right? She explains that every single one of her soldiers has arrived with sword and shield, and that they have come to fight honorably, and that they have seen the way that America fights, the way they use long-range weapons, the way they use incredibly uncontrolled and destructive weapons, and that Tanyar and her soldiers will fight honorably, and that as long as the majority of weapons that are used against them are not modern weapons, then the Tanyar and her forces will continue to fight with their traditional weapons, which is sword and shield. But if modern weapons, if the majority of people fighting against them are modern weapons, then at that point, Tanyar says that she will bring down the wrath of Themyscira. Okay, and that's it. That's her whole. That is her entire speech, right? So at this point, me, the game master, I turn it back over to the player characters to discuss. And I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's listening to this. This is a super fun game it was a really super fun game to get prepared for, because what I did was I went to Comic Vine and I read the top 100 villains of DC, and I also made sure I read the top 100 heroes of DC. I knew I would say 75% of the people in both those lists very, very well, but there were 25% that I was unfamiliar with, and I had to read them. So just getting ready for this game was super fun. And then as soon as I had, and then it was just kind of fun just building up the different fronts that would be used in the game. But then when I turned it over to the player characters, it was really fun just to see how they reacted and to see, their interaction with the Justice League and with Tanyar and amongst themselves discussing what they would do, right? So the first thing they did was they immediately just started yelling at Tanyar, and Martian Manhunter was like, hey, we can all hear you, but they can't hear you, right? This is a television, it goes one way, right? So, and then Martian Manhunter really, did not give them any ability to talk to Tanyar, and so they began talking amongst themselves about what would happen. Well, Jumper, the teleporter, said, this is outrageous. They have no right to do this. We're gonna push them back, right? And he says, yeah, and we're gonna push them back. And so all the other players kind of go around and say, yeah, that's right. This is crazy. There's Tanyar has no right to do this. So at that point, Batman steps forward and he says, I will lead the forces to fight Tanyar in honorable combat. We will need swords and shields. So Colin Crowley walks forward and he goes, hey, Batman, I appreciate you being willing to step up, but shouldn't we hear what Wonder Woman has to say about this? And everybody turns to Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman steps forward and she says, the Justice League, she thinks. So she's silent for about 2 minutes, and everybody in the room waits for her, right? Because within Justice League, they are the Trinity, right? And so like the Justice League key off of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, their decisions. Like they are really the main anchors of that team, right? So she's very quiet, and then she says to everybody, she says, listen, we in the Justice League need to abstain from this fight. We cannot fight in this fight. And the reason why is this entire situation is my problem. I have not returned to Themyscira for 10 years. And a year ago, the Oracle actually sent an Amazon with a message to me saying that there were serious problems in Themyscira and I needed to return immediately. At the same time, there were serious problems here in our world, and and then she looks at Superman and she looks at Batman, and she said, and there's there's often a pressing matter that we need to take care of, and to tell the truth, I really enjoy my life here. I have neglected Themyscira, and this is my fault. So the Justice League needs to step back and not do this. Well, Batman shakes his head. He's like, no, he's like, actually Batman reaffirms, says, no, we really need to go into honorable combat and stop this, right? So John, Martian Manhunter, looks to Superman and says, Superman, who do what is your stance on this? Superman thinks for about 15 seconds, and he goes, he says, I do not agree with Wonder Woman and what she believes should be done here, but I stand with her and I support her plan. And the reason why is she has earned the right to say, which fights we are out of. I am standing with her, even though I don't agree with her. I am standing with her, right? And so at that point, he walks over and stands with her. So John says, that's great. John doesn't say, he says, okay, that's good. We know where people stand. Everybody in the room is going to get a vote, right? And so you can walk to the right and stand with Batman, who will be fighting in the morning against Tanyar and his forces with sword and shield, right? Or you can go over with Wonder Woman, and if you stand with Wonder Woman, the Justice League, if the majority of the people in the Justice League believe that that's the case, then we will not be going down, and we will allow Earth's forces, the United States of America's forces, to handle this problem on their own, right? And so at that point, Jumper comes forward and he says, John, there is a third option. And so he says, not only do I believe that Tanyar needs to be pushed back, but we should use modern weapons. We should aid directly the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Marines and even the U.S. Navy. And we should use modern weapons against her. I am a third position, and anyone who agrees with me should stand with me, right? So at that point, Jumper takes his position, and then Supergirl steps forward, and she says, I think you're all wrong. Tanyar is right. Now, Tanyar is doing this in an unusual way. I'm not super happy about her tactics, but the reality is she's right. There's 50 states in the United States of America. One of these states should be for women. And if we do this, it could bring about good change very quickly. I am going to stand with Tanyar tomorrow. I am a fourth option. And if you agree with me, stand with me. All right. So now, at this point, all of the characters are in place, right? So what I do is I actually leave the decision to the players, right? So I said, all of the, I said basically, I gave them all a clever difficulty check, and that clever difficulty check would gather a percentage of the remaining Justice League to their side, and then they would stand with who they thought was right, and that was it, right? So what happened was we went around the table. Colin Crowley stood with Batman. Harley stood with Batman. Amazo stood with Batman. Jumper stood on his own. Jericho stood with Batman, right? So all of the characters, and then Cardiac also stood with Batman. So Jumper is there standing by himself. All the other players go to Batman. They win a whole bunch of other DC characters to go with them, and it's decided, right, that the entire Justice League in the morning will go and and aid Batman in fighting Tanyar and her forces in traditional combat using swords and shields. And so that was the decision point for what would happen. And that is, and I'll be telling you the rest of the story later. Have a great day.